You can scream and shout with all your might.
Scream, shout, whine, cry, snivel, have sand up your vagina, whatever it takes.
Dig in your heels and hold on tight.
Shove your opinion up your ass, that way you can keep your head company.
Either you are wrong or I am right.
Don't forget the ever-present, the most likely third possibility. You are wrong, and I am right. Welcome to another edition of Stating the Obvious, brought to you by the Simple Libertarian Society. I am your host, Skippy, in the control room is the lovely and adorable Randy. Website address 204eSouth.com/CLS, and the email address if you want to contact us is God. That's dog spelled backwards. God at 204eSouth.com. Where here we launch the cruise missile of my intellect, which destroys the opposition and shatters the fragile glass houses that they exist in. We're going to do a couple of follow-ups from the last edition of Stating the Obvious, and I got some really funny stuff. Look, quick! Randy, shoot the liberal! There we go. Yes! Get him twice. Alright. Always shoot him twice, folks. And remember, when you're trying to shoot a government agent, always aim for the head, because they're wearing body armor. The Stating the Obvious theme song, which is being performed in the background even now as we speak, is, of course, You Know I'm Right by David Gilmour off the 1984 album About Face. Reproduced here, totally, illegally. Hey David, come sue me, bitch, come sue me. And I still have to talk about David Gilmour and something stupid that he said in public. But that is in the future. In the last edition of Stating the Obvious, I talked about people in downtown Fort Collins, stores that sell little trinkets by people from Africa and such, under the pretense that selling these little trinkets is helping these people out by paying them a fair wage and all this other stuff. I found here, oh, and that reminds me, as I, excuse me, see, Randy, this will teach me to drink ginger ale for breakfast. I found this in the Rocky Mountain Bullhorn, which I discovered this morning has apparently gone, well, I should say they've gone out of business. The Rocky Mountain Bullhorn has stopped publishing. Perhaps temporarily, perhaps not temporarily. It will depend. Anyhow, Christmas gift giving guide from the Rocky Mountain Bullhorn. One of the places that you're supposed to shop if you're buying gifts for the hippie/activist type is you could purchase a finger puppet nativity scene from Peru. And where do you purchase this? You purchase this from 10,000 Villages, 113 Old Town Square, Fort Collins. The website is 10,000villages.com. It costs $24. And it says, if you're trying to figure out how to teach the kiddos about the joy of Christmas without the commercial spin, this handmade finger puppet set is one way to go. 10,000 Villages sells only free trade items, which means the Peruvian artists who crafted these little figurines actually get paid a decent wage for their work. Now, these little figurines cost $24. The people who made these are getting a fair wage. Now, let's think about this. If 10,000 Villages is selling these for $24, and this has to cover the cost of operating the 10,000 Villages store, paying their electric and their gas and their water, paying their trash pickup, paying their rent, paying their employees. This $24 that ginger ale is kicking in, sorry about that, folks. This $24 has to cover the cost of transporting the little figurines from Peru all the way to the United States. And this $24 is supposedly paying this fair wage that these artisans in Peru are getting paid. Now, if 10,000 Villages is selling these things for a mere $24, how much could this poor little indigenous person have possibly made out of all this? Now, in this same giving guide issue, over in the part for what you're going to buy if you are buying for a gun-toting libertarian, One of the things that you could buy for your gun-toting libertarian friends is a "What Would Reagan Do" bracelet from the Independence Institute. They're at the independenceinstitute.org. And here's what the little blurb says for this. It says, "Free with a donation to the Independence Institute. Forget supporting cancer or fighting poverty. Use your wrist to tell the world that you support Ronald. Trickle-down economics? Great. AIDS? Who cares?" I find it interesting how liberals attack trickle-down economics. Yet, what exactly is 10,000 villages if not trickle-down economics? And how much of this $24 for this finger puppet nativity set from Peru is actually trickling down to this poor little indigenous artisan who's laboring away to make these things? And these same people come out and tell you if you start a business and pay people minimum wage, you're an evil, bad person. But if you buy a $24 finger puppet set from Peru, you're saving the environment. Oh, you're a wonderful person. And I've got to stop hitting the microphone when I take a drink of yummy ginger ale. What's this? I want to save that. What's this? Oh, I want to save that. What is this? I might want to save that. Oh! Let me do this real quick. You people are so fucking stupid. InsultThePresident.com. You can go to InsultThePresident.com and you can send via this website an insult to President Bush, and it only costs you $20. People, the White House has email and snail mail. You can send a letter to President Bush for the cost of a stamp. Or, if you're doing an email, you can send it for free and insult the president. But no, liberals are people who are so stupid they will pay $20 to do something they could do anyway for free. How did you people get to be this dumb? And why are you so surprised that you lost 2 presidential elections to an illiterate monkey boy who can barely pour piss out of a boot with the instructions written on bottom? On the subject of monkey boy, let's go ahead and do this. This is from a piece called "Secret Agent Bush," written by Kevin Cross. On December 16th, the New York Times revealed President Bush has been authorizing his national security agency to eavesdrops. Okay. Eavesdrops. I can't talk. On December 16th, the New York Times revealed that President Bush has been authorizing his National Security Agency, that's NSA, to eavesdrop on U.S. citizens and organizations without obtaining warrants. Bush claims this eavesdropping is necessary to prevent more terrorist attacks, that he has the authority to do this as Commander-in-Chief, and that his actions are constitutional. Clear manifestation of his imperial mindlessness. Senator Arlen Specter of Pennsylvania, the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and Senator Charles Schumer of New York, among others, have questioned the propriety of the president using the NSA for domestic surveillance. Thank God, surveillance is the proper pronunciation. Patrick Leahy, a Democratic senator from Vermont for the past 32 years, writes on his website that, quote, "The president is not above the law. Even during a time of war, it's time for him to end this warrantless program of spying on Americans," unquote. Not only does Bush reply defiantly to his critics that he will continue his illegal surveillance, but shortly after being confronted on this matter, his Department of Justice announced an investigation into the leak of the secret program, claiming it amounts to a breach of national security. I find it fascinating that liberals have only just now noticed these things happening. I mean, we've been spying on our own people and abusing their civil liberties all throughout the drug war, all throughout the war against alcohol via DUI checkpoints and all these other things. We've been doing this all the time. We've been conducting these searches in schools and searches of students. Bill Clinton was above the law, and yet now, all of a sudden, we're noticing. And don't get me wrong, I'm glad that somebody's actually noticing this. But why did it take so long to notice all of these things? And second of all, much like the Iraq War, it always kills me to hear congressmen pissing and moaning about things like this. The war in Iraq. Anytime Congress wants to point out to the entire country that the President of the United States can't declare war, they could feel free to do so. Congress can shut this shit down anytime they feel like by simply asserting ginger ale. By simply asserting their constitutional power. This brings me to a point I've brought up over and over again. I'm going to cover it again. I think I've covered this on STO. For all of their belly aching and pissing and moaning, Congress doesn't really want a situation where George Bush can't declare war on other countries. Because Congress knows, the Democrats in Congress know, that one day there's going to be another Democratic president. And if that Democratic president wants to go to war in another country, Congress is going to want him to be able to do so. Or her, if it's Hillary. Therefore, they're not going to do anything which jeopardizes the power of the President of the United States to send troops to foreign countries to kill people. They're going to make a lot of noise about it, but they're not going to actually do anything. And this is another classic example. Congress could end all of this right now by simply making it against the law or shutting down the NSA or whatever the hell they have to do. But they're not interested in doing that because the Republicans want the Republican president to continue to have power, and the Democrats know that eventually there's going to be a Democrat president, and they want to make sure that Democratic president is going to have power. And this, in a nutshell, is why I keep trying to tell you people over and over and over, and it's not like you listen to me, but why I keep trying to tell you over and over and over, that the Republicans and the Democrats are playing the same game. Neither of them is your friend. Doesn't add up. This is a editorial by Bethany Kotorik. I think that might be how you say it. She's one of the editors was one of the editors at the now non-publishing Bullhorn. She's the editor who wrote the column in which she admitted that the Bullhorn staff spends a substantial amount of their day sitting around the office playing with dolls, their George Bush doll and their Saddam Hussein doll, and making the dolls copulate with each other and ride around in the little toy Humvee that they have. This, folks, is what you do when you have a journalism degree. Now, this is what she writes. If you want to treat your lady right this holiday season, how about surprising her with a brand new scale? The great minds at Bed Bath & Beyond think this would make a fantastic gift for the special girl on your list. In a recent circular, the housewives In a recent circular, the Housewares mega chain featured gifts for him and gifts for her sections. Gifts for him included a telescope, portable speakers, a massaging office chair, and this nifty little automatic compass. I don't think a man should have a massaging office chair. I think a man should have a woman to give him a massage, because that would be much better. Well, yeah, of course she should be naked and barefoot, pregnant, damn straight, and bring him a beer, too, before the massage. Let me get back to reading. The most prominently displayed must-haves on the gifts for her page: a thinner chrome glass digital scale, lithium battery included, or a Homedics digital body mass index scale. Your choice, only $39.99. Hey, Bed Bath & Beyond, why not throw an ironing board, frying pan, and a Swiffer in that stocking while you're at it? I mean, I'd certainly be flattered to awaken on Christmas morn to discover a weight-measuring device under the tree. I think all women should have a scale for Christmas. It's just a subtle way of saying, bitch, you're too fat. Oh, alright. Further down, she writes, like it or not, advertisements shape and inform our mores and cultural norms, and they indoctrinate youth from the time their parents park them in front of commercials for Easy Bake Ovens and G.I. Joes. The advertising industry locks women and men into rigid gender and sex assignments that most of us don't identify with anyway. And this may be true, but I want to briefly make the same point that I've made over and over and over again. Advertising is evil. Advertising does attempt to lock people into roles. Advertising is patronizing and insulting and all of this other stuff. But I want to make 2 points to you, Bethany, and to all of you liberals out there, and to all of you conservatives out there, and to all of you out there who are offended in any way, manner, shape, or form by the modern media and by advertising and by all this other bullshit. Point number 1. You keep watching the shit. And point number 2, you keep buying the shit. There are some people who would make a moral, ethical, philosophical argument that we have a social responsibility to others. That is to say that we have a responsibility to help lift others up, to overcome their ignorance, their stupidity, and that marketing, advertising, things of this nature are taking advantage of those people and manipulating them into buying these products, etc., etc., instead of doing, as was mentioned in the John Dicker thing that I talked about Walmart, where he has this bizarre notion that Walmart has some sort of social ethical responsibility. I will submit to you that there is no such thing. I will submit to you that it is perfectly morally acceptable to take advantage of stupid people. If I can show you a commercial or a flyer or an advertisement that convinces you that you should go out and spend $39.99 to buy a scale to give to a woman for a Christmas present, if you and the woman are stupid enough to accept that as a perfectly normal thing, that's $39.99 that I deserve to take from you. It's really that simple, folks. You people keep watching this shit. You people keep buying this shit. Bed Bath & Beyond wouldn't be in business and wouldn't be pumping out these circulars if you people weren't going down there and buying this shit in droves. And I went into Bed Bath & Beyond once because I needed to buy a bed, and I thought, hey, that would be a place to maybe find one. I went into Bed Bath & Beyond, and I've seen how expensive the things they have in that store are. You people keep buying the shit. Quote, the NSA program is a necessary program. I was elected to protect the American people from harm, and on September 11th, 2001, our nation was attacked. And after that day, I vowed to use all the resources at my disposal within the law to protect the American people, which is what I have been doing and will continue to do. Unquote. G.W. Monkey Boy Bush, attempting to defend his idea that it's okay to spy on American citizens. He is using all the resources at his disposal. I assume that means he has all 7 of his brain cells highly engaged. in the act of defending the American people from themselves. I mean, as sad and pathetic as liberals are, I hardly think we need to be spying on them. I mean, remember, folks, what is the difference between a liberal and a communist? A communist knows what he's doing. Liberals are never going to gain much power in this country for very long because they're just not smart enough. While they're a low-level threat, they're not a high-level threat. What is this? Oh, this is a op-ed piece by somebody named Philip Cafaro. And this is interesting because this person is an associate professor of philosophy at Colorado State University. The column is about immigration, and most of it's irrelevant, but I just want to read this little piece right here. The 79 million Americans added to our population between 1970 and 2000, many through immigration, have greatly increased our environmental problems, including sprawl, loss of wildlife habitat, and increased air and water pollution. One more reason to keep the nasty little wetbacks out of America, because you see, they're ruining the environment. Now, this is interesting, especially coming from a philosophy professor who you can bet Navy beans to dollars is probably a liberal. These people are coming to America and ruining the environment. How dare they? But here's what's interesting. Isn't the environment a global scenario? Let's say of these 79 million Americans, let's just make up a number. Let's say 30 million of them were immigrants. So these 30 million people came to America, and now they're ruining the environment. But wait, if these 30 million people had stayed where they were, wouldn't they still be ruining the environment? But now, of course, no, because you see, the argument that liberals will make is that these people come to America where we are more affluent, and we use more resources, and we have more technology. And so as they integrate into our society, they use more resources and more technology, and they contribute more to the destruction of the environment than they would have had they remained where they were. You see, would those people have remained where they were, poor, impoverished, starving, living in grass huts or some shit without things like running water and electricity, conveniences which are only for white people from America, not for those nasty little foreigners, then the environment would be so much better off. And that, my friends, is the compassion of liberalism. I've said it time and time again. When it comes to environmentalism, the goal of liberals, the goal of the environmentalist, the goal of the green wacko motherfuckers is to keep everybody living in as much poverty as possible, because these people equate poverty with environmental protection, and these people equate wealth with environmental destruction. Why? Because they're too stupid to know that a society that's wealthy enough is a society that cleans up behind itself. Poor societies do not protect the environment. Poor societies don't give a fuck about the environment because poor societies are busy trying to survive. When you're trying to survive day to day, you don't give a shit about taking care of the environment. You give a shit about finding food so you can live until tomorrow so that you can go find some more food. When you become rich enough, you know where your food is coming from. You don't have to worry about where your food is coming from. Then you can turn your attention to things like, damn, that sky sure looks shitty out there. I wonder where all this smoke is coming from. Or, damn, look at all that trash laying out there by the road. Somebody needs to pick that shit up. Or, damn, this river sure does smell bad. Maybe we need to find something to do besides dumping chemicals into it and polluting it. When your society becomes rich enough, then you worry about pollution, and then you take care of the earth. These liberals have watched too many movies and too much television where people who lived in the Middle Ages lived these wonderful, clean lives and didn't have sanitary problems, didn't die of diseases. Back in the day when if you were 30 years old, you were an old person. What is this? This needs to go somewhere else. La 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 la. What is this? Oh, this is hilarious. Environmentalism. A telephone poll of over 1,200 people, wow, 1,200 people, ooh, revealed that 74% of citizens strongly believe that protecting the environment is so important that requirements cannot be too high and continuing environmental improvements must be made regardless of cost. Really? Who are these 1,200 people? And who exactly is going to pay for all of these environmental improvements that are going to be made regardless of cost? I have to seriously wonder about a country in which the opinions of people who are obviously this stupid are taken into account. I love it when people say we must do things regardless of the cost. Totally irregardless of the cost. It continues a little more. This shows how well our colleges are doing at educating the journalists who write this kind of shit. More than 75% of dailies out west provide no educational training to reporters who follow natural resource and science issues. Now, why should a newspaper have to provide educational training to reporters who follow natural resource and science issues? Isn't the concept of being a journalist that you went to college and got a degree in journalism? And while you were there in college, getting this journalism degree, shouldn't you have perhaps gotten something resembling an, education? And during the pursuit of this education thingy, shouldn't you have maybe taken a class about, science or something like that? But no, apparently the only things covered in journalism school is how to play with dolls. Alright. We may as well get on to this. It is February. Oh, that's right, by the way. I did not say that this is February the 19th. I normally try to include the date somewhere in these things to help keep track of all this stuff. It is February. It is Black History Month. And it is the month of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And this is when, here in Fort Collins, Colorado, we have this little march from CSU campus to downtown Fort Collins to celebrate Martin Luther King's life and to remind everybody how all white people are racist and give the evil white people a chance to atone for their sins. Every year we make a big deal out of this. Al Gates shows up and runs around squawking off at the mouth. Got some interesting stuff here about the entire Martin Luther King Jr. Day Black History Month holiday. Black History Month, it's not a holiday, related thingies. According to the 2000 census, the black population made up less than 1% of Fort Collins residents. Well, I've been telling you that for a long time. Excuse me, ginger ale. Oof. Here's an interesting statistic. In 2005, the Coloradoan, which is the local newspaper, reported that 6.5%... What? Okay, this is what it says. I'm reading this sentence exactly as it's written. In 2005, the Coloradoan reported that 6.5% of its newsroom staff as non-white. Now, that is not grammatically correct, but see, it's okay, because this was written, this is from the Fort Collins Weekly, this was written by a journalist. This journalist has a degree in journalism. And as we just talked about, journalists need to be taught things like science and natural resources, because when they were getting their degrees in journalism, they didn't actually learn anything like science or natural resource management or grammar or proofreading or editing or anything like that, because they were just handed those journalism degrees, because if you don't give people a degree in college, well, then that's not fair. The second point about this sentence, in addition to the fact that the weekly doesn't know how to edit, is what the fuck does that have to do with anything? I mean, does it matter? Why does it matter what percentage of your newsroom staff is non-white? I'll tell you why it matters. It matters because liberals are people who break other people into categories based on their skin color and then make assumptions about people's beliefs based upon their skin color. This is, of course, essentially the definition of racism, but remember, it's only racist when a white man with a job does it. If you're a liberal and you make assumptions about people based on their skin color, that's called compassion. That's called diversity. That's called tolerance. Here's another interesting one. Would you like to see Fort Collins become more diverse? Quote, absolutely, without question, unquote, says Julie Keith, art director for Larimer County Boys and Girls Club. Quote, for me, I've always wanted that. I've lived here for 21 years, and I've always wanted to see it become more diverse, and it is getting there slowly, unquote. If we're going to call diversity the percentage of the population which is white compared to the percentage of the population which is non-white, if we're going to judge diversity based on skin color, which of course was what people like this bitch's name, Julie. This is what Julie means when she says diversity. She means people with different color skin. If that's how we're going to judge diversity, and if she wants Fort Collins to be more diverse, all she's got to do is take her white bread family and leave. Then there would be fewer white people, and that would make the percentage of the population of minorities rise as a whole by getting white people the fuck out of town. So all you fucking white liberals in Fort Collins who want diversity, who want more diversity, just leave. Get the fuck out. Go somewhere else. I mean, it's basic mathematics here. In a speech from the podium, quote, there is only one black member of the CSU president's cabinet, unquote, says Blaine Harding, Colorado State Ethics Studies, ethnic studies professor. Quote, how many minorities are there on the Loveland or Fort Collins city councils? How many minorities are there on the Loveland or Fort Collins school boards? Is this truly embodying diversity, unquote? Well, diversity of what? Diversity of skin color? Well, maybe not. But what's the point of having... Why do we need people with different color skin on all these? Are you saying that black people are smarter than white people? Are you saying they're dumber than white people? Are you saying they think differently than white people? I mean, isn't the entire purpose of all this shit to show us that black people are just like white people? And then we sit here and we go, wow, there's no black person doing this, there's no black person doing that, there's no black person doing this, there's too many white people here, there's too many white people there, there's not enough black people here. Well, if the only difference between black people and white people is skin color, what fucking difference does it make? The final blurb says, organizers estimated that fewer than 3,000 people participated in the event this year, down from other years because of the cold weather. About 60 people volunteered for the event. So, Black History and Martin Luther King Day and making sure black people are equal is very, very, very important and critical here in diverse, multicultural, tolerant Fort Collins, but not important enough for more than 3,000 people to go out into the cold. Because, gosh, you know, We really like them black people, but boy, it sure is cold out there. And we gotta have our priorities, don't we? You're real multicultural until it gets cold outside. Okay. Here's another piece. Early Saturday morning, 4 young white men accosted a 24-year-old man on West Laurel and Whitcomb Streets, kicking and hitting him repeatedly. One of them yelled, "Kick the nigger," according to the victim. The suspects drove off in a brown van, and the incident is still under investigation. Police have said it could be a hate crime. We should not, in 2006, still have individuals beaten because of the color of their skin, said Dr. Blanche Hughes, Colorado State University Associate Vice President for Student Affairs, during the opening ceremonies on Monday at CSU's Oval. But we do, perhaps even in Fort Collins, so our work is not done. Yeah, I guess not enough people stood out there on Martin Luther King Day in the cold, only 3,000 of them. Just because there's 3 white guys beating up a black person, and just because one of the stupid white people says, "Kick the nigger," doesn't mean they beat him up just because he's black. Now, this is one of those things, I haven't heard anything else about this since this happened. So, I don't know why, if they've determined why, these 3 white men actually beat this black man up. Maybe he owed them money. Maybe he was, stealing their bicycle. Maybe he had sex with one of their sisters and they were pissed. I don't have a fucking clue. But there's an assumption. This is my point for those of you that are stupid and I think I'm a racist, and that's fine because I don't give a fuck what you think. This is my point. You can't make the assumption, based on the information we had at this point, that he was beat up simply because he was black. That's an assumption that's being made. Now, I'm not saying that's not the case, because unlike you liberal Democrats out there, and you conservative Republicans for that matter, I'm not a mind reader. I don't know what other people think all the time and what motivates them to do things. All I'm saying is, we couldn't at the time this was written. As I said, I don't know what investigations have happened since then. We didn't know if he was actually attacked for no reason other than he has dark skin, or if there was some other motive involved. Yet the reporter, if you want to, the journalist, who didn't learn anything in college, because apparently in college, when you're going for a journalism degree, the education part is optional. The journalist who wrote this thing made an assumption. Assuming is not journalism. Harding expressed a frustration at the lack of real progress towards equality in America, and he urged the audience to take action and to serve others in the community. Harding questioned the commitment of local government, university, and business leaders to equality. He said that in spite of their numerous events and programs celebrating diversity, the lack of minorities in leadership positions in those institutions is disappointing. Well, it's not like they ain't trying. Okay. First of all, businesses are privately owned and exist to make a profit. They are not there to serve social engineering schemes. Businesses, this whole idea of the government running around telling businesses you have to have a certain percentage of people with vaginas and a certain percentage of people with dark skin on your boards or in your management is bullshit. As for CSU, working at CSU, I can tell you that if you show up at CSU's doorstep and you have dark skin, you're going to get a job. We have a process called the red stamp process. When interviews are done, if there are any minorities, or as they are politically correctly called, underrepresented groups in the pool of people you might want to hire, you have to get permission from Human Resources to hire somebody who is not in the underrepresented group. So you show up at CSU, you apply for a job, and you have dark skin, you're getting a job. Because there's no way in hell you cannot be hired. Because if you're not, it doesn't matter if you're a mass murderer who's mentally retarded and a quadriplegic. You're still going to get the job because you have black skin. You have to be hired. As for the government, well, the government is elected by the people, because as you liberals love to point out, this is a democracy, even though it's actually not a democracy. It's a representative republic, but we're not going there. If the government doesn't have enough minorities in it, well, whose fucking fault is that? It's the fault of the people who elect the government. What is this? Oh! In my PL 666 class, Science and Ethics, we have this little chickie in there. I forget her name. She's kind of cute. But you can tell she's also very liberal and a little dingy. We were discussing the other day how some cultures are better than other cultures from an ethical and moral perspective. And they are, and we're not going to have that discussion right now. But she brought up this argument that it would be better if women ruled the world, because then there would be less wars and all this other shit. And this got me thinking. You know, this is a common myth that runs around. Oh, if women ruled the world, if women ran things, everything would be so much better. There'd be no wars, everything would be peaceful and wonderful, and oh, lovey-dovey butterflies and all this other shit. It's got me thinking about that on a serious level and different ways to refute it. Now, we're going to parallel for a moment here. There's an argument made that there is discrimination in the workplace in corporate America because there are not very many female CEOs and female CFOs and female board of directors and all this other kind of shit. And the counterpoint to this is that men have risen to these higher levels in businesses and possibly even government as well, because men have been, quote-unquote, in the business longer than women. And women are rising up, and soon women will achieve an equality in status and power and all this other stuff. And I tend to agree with that. Women have not been in the workforce long enough to rise to these upper echelons. And this little factoid got me thinking on a parallel course with the entire concept of women in positions of power. Women will tell you, well, there have been no, psychopathical, pathological, murdering, tyrant dictators who have been women. Adolf Hitler was not a woman, Genghis Khan was not a woman, Pol Pot was not a woman, Mussolini was not a woman, blah, blah, blah. I would submit to you the reason history does not show us very many examples of women who were leaders of countries who subsequently murdered millions and millions and millions of people. Joseph Stalin was not a woman. Is simply because women have in the past not been in a position to be the leaders of countries as often as men have. I will submit to you that if you went back in history, if you took every leader of every country who was a man and put a woman in that position, and if you subsequently took all the leaders of countries in the past who have been women and put men in those positions, so that women became the vast majority of world leaders throughout history, and men became the vast minority of world leaders throughout history, I submit that if you did this, you would see an equal number of female leaders of nations mass murdering their own citizens and starting wars and everything else. Because let's think about this here. I mean, statistically, people say, well, there's always wars going on and all this other stuff, and that all may be true. But if you look at the number of countries on the earth, consider every country has some kind of a leader, be they an idiot or not an idiot. At any given time, you're always going to have some idiots coming into conflict. You're always going to have some wars. Now, if you swap all those men out and put women in their place, remember, this is another thing. All right, thank you, Randy. Let me try to finish that thought. Statistically speaking, you're still going to have all these problems, and they're still going to have to be solved in more or less the same ways. Regardless of whether or not there are women or men up there, you're still going to have just as many wars. You're still going to have just as many psychos. You're still going to have just as many people killing their own citizens. Now, thanks, Randy. I forgot where I was going with my other point. No, it's all your fault. Why? What? Why? Yeah. No, it's your fault because you're the woman. It's always the woman's fault. Go bring me a beer. Actually, do we have any beer left in the fridge here? One? That's it? You touch it, you die. That's mine. Now I'm going to need a beer after this. What? What was I going to say? No, I am ticked off. I'm serious. Well, you. This is why I need to use notes sometimes. Oh, yes! Oh, thank you. All right. Here's another point. This ties into another little thought experiment. People will often come up and say, I don't know what that was. People will often say things like, well, if I were the President of the United States, I would do such and such. And here's a newsflash for you. No, you wouldn't. If you were the President of the United States, you would do essentially everything that G.W. Bush is doing. And why would you do what G.W. Bush is doing? Simple. Because if you were the President of the United States, you would not be the person you are right now. The way you become the President of the United States is to fit into a certain mold. You need to be rich, you need to be white, you need to be male, you have to have powerful friends, you have to have lots of money coming in, you have to have mindless supporters who are willing to believe anything you say regardless of how stupid it is. Now, in order to get to all of those points and to be that kind of person, you have to be a certain kind of person. And the kind of person you are now is not the sort of person who is going to become the President of the United States. Therefore, you as you are now, and me as I am now, none of us will ever be the President of the United States. The only way any of us could be the President of the United States is to be a rich, well-connected, powerful, influential white man who has his head shoved up his ass. So if any of us were the President of the United States, we would be doing essentially the same stupid shit that George Bush is doing. Because to be the President, you have to be like the President. Now, how does this tie in with women as the mass murdering leaders of countries? Simple. This rule doesn't change just because you have a vagina. In order to have been the leader of Nazi Germany, you would have had to have been a lot like Adolf Hitler. In order to have been the leader of communist Russia, you would have had to have been a lot like Joseph Stalin. In order to have been the leader of Imperial Japan, you would have had to have been a lot like Emperor Hirohito. You don't become the leader of a nation without being a low-life, two-faced, backstabbing, spineless, moralless, cock-sucking piece of shit. The fact that you have a vagina isn't going to change that. So even if we lived in a world where women rose to leadership positions, what is the person who sits at the very top of a government structure? It's a person who wants to and seeks ways to control other people. This is what the government is all about, for those of you who haven't figured this shit out yet. The government is about controlling what other people do. In order to rise to the top of an organization whose sole purpose is to control what other people do, to limit their freedom, to take their freedom from them, to take their taxes from them, to do things they don't want done, in order to rise to the top of an organization like that, you have to be a certain kind of person. That kind of person is a nasty, spineless, worthless piece of shit. That is the kind of person like John Kerry, or George Bush, or Bill Clinton, or Richard Nixon, or Ronald Reagan, or Jimmy Carter, or Joseph Stalin, or Adolf Hitler, or Mussolini, or Pol Pot, or Tony Blair, or Margaret Thatcher, or any of these other people. Only those kind of people are going to rise, are going to rise to the top of a government. Only those kind of people are going to become world leaders. And those kind of people are the kind of people who take away your freedom and murder citizens anyhow. Just because you have people with vaginas rising to the top doesn't mean you're going to live in a better, more peaceful world. It just means you're going to have nasty people doing nasty things, and they're going to have vaginas. And if you're going to tell me that having the vagina makes a difference, then you have to make the assertion that there's a difference between men and women based on gender. And of course, if you're a liberal, believing that there's actually a difference between men and women based on the fact that men and women have different genders and nothing else, is of course the entire thing that you spend your entire life running around saying doesn't exist, because men and women are exactly the same, and that's why they should be equal, even though there is of course no such thing as equality. I think I've talked about this one before. Nobody is equal. There is no fucking such thing as equality. The only equality is when you're worm meat. When you're alive, we're all different. There is no fucking equality. I'm kind of, we are done, aren't we? Good. Because I am just about talked out. I'm ready to go watch another episode, or maybe even two. Maybe even 2 episodes of South Park Season 5. We're up to Cartman's amusement park episode, which I have seen before, and it's funny. But we will be back soon with another stating the obvious, to impart some more of my great wisdom to get you people through your sad, pathetic, useless little lives so that you can hang around long enough to go out and vote Democrat or Republican and fuck this country up even worse. Remember, if any of what I'm resonating says with you, if any of you out there are getting tired of being shit on by the government and being spied on by the government, remember, you always have an option. You can vote Libertarian. You don't have to keep pulling the little handle for the Republicans and the Democrats. Anytime you want to remove your head from your ass and douche the sand out of your vagina, you can do that. All you gotta do is vote Libertarian. It's not that fucking hard. Remember, you're supposed to vote. Why? Because every vote counts. And since every vote counts, you should vote Libertarian. Because if every vote counts, you can't waste your vote on a third party, can you? Think about that. Think about it, folks. I know it's hard.